Imagine losing the love of your life, grieving for years, only to discover she never died. What if everything you believed was a lie? Welcome to this channel. If you crave stories that shake your soul and twist your mind, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss an update on the most chilling true crime tales, both told and untold. On April 22nd, 2017, Malik Sterling received the kind of call no husband should ever get: a catastrophic highway crash. The vehicle burned beyond recognition, and with it, his wife, Naima Sterling Jordan, presumed dead. For 6 long years, Malik lived with unbearable grief. He raised their daughter alone, haunted by the ashes of a life stolen too soon. But fate wasn't finished with him. Because on a humid August evening in Barbados, Malik's world fractured. He glanced up and froze, his pulse spiked, his vision blurred. There she was, Naima, alive, smiling, hand in hand with his best friend. Everything he knew was built on lies. Now it was time to unravel the truth. Malik Sterling Jordan was born June 2nd, 1987 in Savannah, Georgia, a place steeped in charm and history. But for Malik, survival was the rhythm of life. His mother, Constance Jordan, was a quiet warrior, working 2 jobs, keeping food on the table. His father gone before Malik turned 2. Growing up in Savannah's West End, Malik was no stranger to struggle, but where others strayed, he focused. Books were his escape, math his language. He wasn't loud or flashy, just relentless. After graduating from Saul C. Johnson High School in 2005, he earned a full ride to Georgia Tech, determined to become a civil engineer. Hurricanes had devastated parts of his state. He wanted to rebuild, to design structures that could weather any storm, unlike his childhood. That's when he met Naima, born January 5th, 1989 in Austin, Texas. A journalism major with a magnetic presence. Calm fire, quiet thunder. She didn't chase the spotlight, it followed her. She made him laugh, she made him think, she made him believe. They balanced each other, his structure, her spontaneity. They married in a small ceremony in Atlanta in 2013, and a year later their daughter Sarai was born. She was Malik's everything, his reason, his anchor. Naima's career as a TV news producer soared. Malik, meanwhile, climbed the ranks at a leading engineering firm. Life had its bumps, its silent battles, but they were family, or so he thought. Enter Dorian Kane, born October 14th, 1986 in Little Rock, Arkansas, but raised in Georgia since age 4. Dorian and Malik were inseparable since elementary school. Dorian was the charmer, the risk-taker, the opposite of Malik's calculated nature. But their bond? Ironclad. Dorian never pursued college. He hustled, bought, sold, flipped, traveled, and succeeded in unconventional ways. But no matter how high he climbed, he never forgot Malik or Naima. They were a trio. Dorian was Uncle D to little Sarai, present at every milestone, always the life of the party, always around. April 22nd, 2017 started like any other. Malik had stayed late at the firm. Naima had meetings with senior producers. They texted briefly, nothing unusual. At 10:18 p.m. his phone rang, unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something in him knew. Mr. Malik Sterling? A pause, then the words that tore through him. There's been an accident, a fatal collision on Highway 41 outside Macon. The vehicle registered to a Naima Sterling Jordan caught fire upon impact. There were no survivors. The only identifiers left behind were a charred wedding ring and the locket he gave her on their first anniversary. There was no DNA, no dental records, no body, just fragments and ashes. The funeral was held on April 28th in Savannah, a closed casket, a ceremony of heartbreak and silence. Malik barely spoke. Their daughter, Sarai, only 3, asked over and over, "Where's Mommy? When is she coming home?" He had no answers. For months, Malik moved through life in a fog. Grief stole his appetite, his peace, his hope. Only Dorian kept him afloat, handling bills, comforting Sarai, making Malik eat when he forgot how. But that trust, that sacred bond, was the foundation of the cruelest lie. Six years later, on that warm August evening, Malik traveled to Barbados for a corporate retreat. He was alone, tired, worn. The beach was alive with laughter and music. Then it happened. He looked up from his drink and saw her, Naima, not a hallucination, not a dream. Her face, her walk, her laugh. She was holding Dorian's hand, kissing his cheek, alive, smiling, free. Malik's heart cracked open. Every truth unraveled. Everything he'd buried resurfaced. Now it was time for answers, time for justice. This isn't just a story, it's a betrayal of the deepest kind, and the investigation had only just begun. She was gone. Until she wasn't. Zaria never felt truly alone, even after her mother's supposed death. While Elijah Reyes drowned in sorrow, his childhood best friend, Tyson Cale Monroe, was his lifeline, but something was off. Tyson wasn't the same. He was quiet, distant, constantly on the move. One night, sitting in Elijah's dimly lit living room with untouched whiskey between them, Tyson finally broke the silence. "I'm leaving, man. Got a big opportunity in Milan, could be life-changing." Elijah nodded, numb, barely registering the words. Tyson promised they'd stay close, but grief has a way of numbing everything, even suspicion. And just like that, Tyson faded from his life. The calls slowed, then stopped. At the time, Elijah didn't think much of it. He didn't have the emotional energy to care. But in the years that followed, he'd revisit that night, over and over. Grief blinds. It steals logic, replaces it with raw ache. And Elijah Reyes was buried in it. He accepted what he was told because he had no reason to question it. He laid his wife, Lana Monroe Reyes, to rest, in his heart at least, and lived every day carrying her ghost. But the truth has a way of resurfacing. And 7 years later, on an island far from home, the past would come back with a vengeance. One look, one face, one impossible moment, and everything unraveled. April 2017 marked the beginning of a nightmare Elijah never saw coming. For 4 years he had built a life with Lana. They had a daughter, Zaria, and a home in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was a father, a husband, a man with dreams. But in one night that identity shattered. Now he was a widower, a single father, a man caught between memory and misery. His life became a cycle: wake, survive, work, sleep when he could. The house they once made a home now echoed with silence. Only Zaria kept him tethered to reality. She had been just 3 when Lana died in a fiery crash on I-85, too young to grasp loss, but not too young to ask, again and again, "Daddy, when's Mummy coming home?" He never found the courage to say it, not out loud, not to her. His mother, Maria Reyes, stepped in to help, a tough, resilient 61-year-old who raised Elijah after his father disappeared when he was 5. "You gotta keep living, mijo," she whispered one night while tucking Zaria into bed. "She needs you. Don't let your pain raise her." He nodded, but inside he was unraveling. He buried himself in work. As a senior project manager at a respected firm, he took on more than ever. Work became his hiding place. Tyson was there in the beginning, calling, checking in, but soon the excuses came. Time zone issues, busy schedule, then nothing. By 2018, the calls stopped completely. One evening, Elijah tried calling him. Twice, no answer. Voicemail, something didn't feel right, but what was left to investigate? Tyson had moved on. Everyone had, everyone but Elijah. By 2019, Zaria was 5. Her words cut deeper than any silence ever could. "Daddy, why don't you smile anymore?" That crushed him. He tried to smile, to be present, but at night he'd lie awake wondering, was she scared? Did she feel pain? Could he have saved her? He never spoke about Lana's death, not unless he was forced to. Deep down, something had always felt off, because sometimes grief isn't the only thing hiding in your heart. Sometimes doubt lives there too. By 2024, Elijah had adjusted, at least on the surface. He was functioning. Zaria was now 10, a sharp, thoughtful little girl growing up fast, and she was tired of seeing her dad sad. "Daddy, let's go somewhere. Just us, please." That did it. Elijah booked their first ever vacation together, a week in St. Lucia. He needed it as much as she did, maybe more. On July 19th, 2024, they landed at Huanora International Airport. The ocean breeze met them with warmth. The air was thick with salt and new beginnings. They checked into the Celeste Blue Resort, where the staff welcomed them with chilled drinks and friendly smiles. Zaria squealed with joy at the sight of the pool, the beach, the palm trees. "This is the best day ever, Daddy." And for the first time in 7 years, Elijah almost believed her. They spent the first 2 days exploring, eating island fruit, soaking up sun. For once, Elijah was just a father, not a widower, not a man haunted, until the third night. The sunset painted the sky in streaks of crimson and gold. Island music floated through the air. Elijah sat on the patio of a beachfront cafe watching Zaria enjoy her smoothie. Then he froze. A man walked past the shore, tall, confident, too familiar. At first, Elijah dismissed it. It couldn't be. But then the man turned, just slightly, the profile, the posture, that walk, his breath caught. Tyson, after all these years, the man who vanished, the man who promised to stay close, alive and here. 7 years had passed, but the truth was just beginning. The sun dipped low over the St. Kitts shoreline, casting a golden glow across the sand as Elijah Reyes sat frozen at the edge of a cafe patio, his drink untouched, his chest tight. He wasn't imagining things. The man walking along the beach wore an expensive linen shirt, collar open, his stride unmistakably confident, his clean-shaven jaw, the calm in his posture. It was him. Tyson Cale Monroe. Elijah rose instinctively from his seat, mouth parting, then stopped cold. She was there. Lana Monroe Reyes, the woman he buried, the woman he mourned for 7 years, the mother of his child. And she was laughing. Her body aligned with Tyson's like they'd never spent a day apart. Her long, dark hair shimmered in the fading light. Her skin still glowed with that soft honey tone. Her head tilted back with a laugh that Elijah hadn't heard since before the accident. She leaned into Tyson's arm, then kissed him, and Elijah's entire world collapsed. The noise around him, the laughter, the clinking glasses, the ocean's rhythm faded into static. His stomach twisted, his fingers gripping the table until his knuckles turned white. This couldn't be real, but there she was. Not in a photograph, not in a dream, not in a casket. Alive, and with Tyson, the man Elijah once called his brother. The same Tyson who stood beside him at the funeral. The same Tyson who consoled him, helped raise his daughter, and disappeared with a hollow goodbye. Elijah's mind flashed back. The ring, the necklace, the closed casket, the lack of DNA, the odd timing of Tyson's sudden move overseas. And suddenly it all made sense. They had planned it. They had staged her death. And Elijah, he had been drowning in a lie. For 7 years he carried grief that wasn't real. He raised their daughter alone while Lana lived in luxury, wrapped in Tyson's arms. And now, with the truth burning through his chest, Elijah knew one thing. This wasn't just a lie, it was betrayal, and someone was going to pay. Shock doesn't always come like a thunderbolt. Sometimes it slithers in quietly, numbing the brain before the body catches on. Elijah sat still, heart pounding. He stared at the impossible scene. Lana Monroe, born March 6, 1989 in San Diego, California, was alive. Not just alive, thriving. She was smiling, relaxed, unaware that her past had caught up with her. Elijah's breathing slowed, but his rage surged. This wasn't mistaken identity, this was deception. He didn't storm the beach, he didn't call her name. He did what years of discipline had taught him to do. He stayed calm. He reached for his phone, found a number he hadn't touched in years. He called Tyson. It rang twice. "Yo, my guy." Tyson's voice was casual, familiar. "Been a minute." Elijah's hands clenched. "Yeah, it's been too long. Where are you at these days?" A short pause. Then the lie. "Berlin, man. Work's been insane. Haven't had a second to breathe." Elijah's jaw tensed. "Crazy. Figured maybe you were somewhere tropical. Vacation or something." Tyson laughed. "I wish, bro." "Nah, all grind lately. Maybe one day." That was all Elijah needed to hear. Tyson was lying without hesitation, as if it was second nature. He didn't confront them that night. He waited, watched, learned. Over the next 2 days, Elijah tracked every move. They had breakfast each morning at an oceanfront cafe. Tyson with his newspaper, Lana with her fruit bowl. They held hands, they kissed, they laughed. In the afternoons, they strolled the beach like newlyweds, blending in with tourists. Lana wore oversized sunglasses and a sun hat, not to hide, but out of comfort. She wasn't afraid. She believed she was safe. That's what made Elijah burn. She never thought he'd find her, because Tyson had made sure of it. The switched body, the burned car, the vanished records, it was a perfect cover. Or so they thought. On the third evening, Elijah followed them to their hotel, the Mariner Grand Villa, a 5-star resort offering private suites, infinity pools, personal chefs. That's where they stayed, living in luxury, built on the ruins of Elijah's grief. By day 4, the fog of confusion had lifted. All that remained was rage. Elijah walked into town, past sunburnt tourists and island vendors, his mind a storm. His feet moved until they stopped outside a small, shadowy shop. Souvenirs lined the walls. But Elijah wasn't there for keepsakes. He paid in cash, no questions asked. He walked out with a gun. It felt foreign in his hand, yet entirely necessary. This wasn't about revenge, this was about justice. He had buried a wife who never died, raised a daughter in pain, while Lana played house in paradise, and the man who claimed to be his brother helped orchestrate it all. That night, Elijah sat alone in his hotel room, the pistol on the table, his hands shaking, not with fear but with pressure. Memories played in his head. The ring he picked up at the police station, twisted, burned. Lana had watched him break, watched him mourn. And Tyson, he had held him through it, lying the entire time. Elijah pressed his palms to his eyes, his breathing ragged. What would they say now? Would Lana cry? Would Tyson try to laugh it off like he always did when caught in a lie? He didn't care. He had a plan. He knew where they went, where they ate, where they walked. And tonight, he knew something else. Lana would visit the spa alone, and Tyson would be in their suite. Alone. As the final blush of sunlight sank beneath the horizon, Elijah Reyes stood outside the Ocean Crest Grand, half hidden among a crowd of sun-kissed tourists. But Elijah wasn't here to unwind. His heart wasn't pounding. His hands didn't tremble. Everything inside him was cold, still, inevitable. Then he saw her. She stepped out of the resort spa, skin glowing, hair damp from a massage, wrapped in the glow of a new life. Carefree, effortless. Lana Monroe Reyes, alive. She didn't spot him at first until she did. Her body froze, their eyes locked. Color drained from her face in an instant. She opened her mouth, maybe to run, maybe to scream. Elijah didn't let her choose. He stepped forward, and the glint of a pistol caught the fading light. His voice was like stone. Don't scream, walk. Lana broke. She slumped, shoulders low, guilt clawing through her voice. It was staged, she whispered. A morgue body, the jewelry. It was all planted, a setup. Elijah's insides twisted. He had buried a stranger, mourned someone who never died. He stepped closer. Why? Lana swallowed hard. Because I was tired. Tired of our life, tired of being a mother, tired of being your wife. The words landed like a slap. Elijah stood motionless, boiling from within. And Tyson? He asked, though he already knew. She faltered. He waited. Her answer came like a ghost. I was with him before the crash. A dry, bitter laugh escaped Elijah's lips. Of course you were. So that was the plan? Fake your death, leave your daughter motherless. Let me mourn you for 7 years. Her silence was the only answer he needed. His voice dropped to a whisper. You let our daughter grow up without you. You let me fall apart. For what? Tears ran down Lana's face. Silent, too late. But Elijah didn't care. The damage was done. The memories, the empty birthdays, the nights he stared at the ceiling, the moment the cops handed him that scorched ring. They meant nothing now. His finger twitched over the trigger. Justice begged for release, but not yet. There was still one more person. Call him, Elijah said, barely above a whisper. Lana blinked. What, Tyson? Call him, tell him to come here. She hesitated. Elijah raised the gun now. Her hands shook as she reached for her phone. A beat of silence. Then the call. Hey babe, you good? Tyson's voice came through, calm and careless. Come to room 207, Lana said, voice flat. What, I was just come, click. Five minutes later, a knock. Elijah moved to the side of the door, gun ready. Lana opened it. Tyson Cale Monroe, born August 7th, 1986 in Little Rock, Arkansas, walked in like he owned the world. Damn girl, what's got you all? Then he saw Elijah, and the room went silent. He froze, his eyes found the gun, then Lana, then Elijah again. For a moment he didn't flinch, didn't panic. Then Elijah spoke. How long? Tyson's jaw clenched. Elijah stepped forward. How long? Tyson sighed, as if annoyed. You already know, man. What's the point? Say it. Elijah's voice was ice. I want to hear it. Tyson met his stare. Then he spilled everything. The affair. How it began 8 months before Lana's accident. How she wanted out. How he offered her freedom. The plan was his. The body, a Jane Doe from a morgue. The fire, the ring and necklace as confirmation. The lies, all of it. Elijah felt his lungs tighten. He had spent 7 years grieving, while they spent 7 years building a life on his ruin. The gun felt heavier now. Tyson's smirk deepened, like none of it mattered, like Elijah still meant nothing. It's just life, man. People change. We wanted more. Ain't no point in getting bent out of shape about it. That's all Tyson Cale Monroe had to say. 7 years of pain, 7 years of grieving a lie, 7 years of watching his daughter grow up motherless. And this was his explanation. It's just life. Elijah Reyes let out a bitter, broken laugh. His finger curled tighter around the trigger. Lana gasped, stepping forward. "Elijah, please don't do this." But he barely heard her. Tyson didn't beg, didn't flinch. His hands lifted casually, the corner of his mouth still curled into that arrogant smirk. He didn't believe Elijah would go through with it. He was wrong. The first shot rang out. Tyson staggered backward, clutching his chest as red soaked through his white linen shirt. He fell to his knees, gasping, but Elijah wasn't done. The second shot came instantly. Lana screamed, Tyson collapsed, and Elijah turned. His eyes locked on Lana Monroe Reyes, the woman he had once loved. She was sobbing now, hands clasped, her body trembling with fear. She had run from this day, convinced herself it would never come, but it had. Elijah stepped toward her, slow, deliberate. "You let me mourn you," he said, voice tight. "You let our daughter grow up without you." Lana shook her head, crying, "Please." He raised the gun for a second. He saw the woman he once knew. But then he saw the truth. Her betrayal, the years she stole. He pulled the trigger. One shot. She inhaled sharply, then dropped to the floor. Silence. The gun clattered to the floor as Elijah exhaled. He stood in the center of the room, surrounded by blood, surrounded by truth. The pain was still there, but the ghosts were finally gone. He reached for his phone, dialed, his voice hollow. "Send the police to the Ocean Crest Grand, room 207, 2 dead." A pause. "Sir, what happened?" "Justice." Click. Some betrayals can be forgiven, others demand blood. In that cold, expensive hotel suite, Elijah had chosen vengeance. 2 bullets, 2 bodies, 2 people who had dismantled his world, now dead at his hands. He didn't flee, didn't run. He sat on the edge of the bed, placed the pistol on the table, wiped his hands clean. 10 minutes later, the police burst into the room. "Hands where we can see them." Elijah complied. The handcuffs clicked into place, cold and final. He didn't flinch. As they led him through the hotel lobby, lights flashing outside, Elijah looked toward one window. Inside a neighboring suite, his daughter slept peacefully, 10-year-old Zaria Reyes, tucked in by the babysitter, unaware that her father's life had just ended. The courtroom was packed. Day after day, it stayed full. Family, reporters, curious strangers, everyone wanted to witness the trial that sounded like fiction. Elijah pleaded guilty, no defenses, no excuses. His lawyer tried to explain this wasn't murder, it was emotional collapse, it was psychological torment, years of grief built on deception, but the prosecutor painted a different picture. Yes, Elijah was wronged, but he didn't stop at grief. He planned, he hunted, he executed. On December 14th, 2023, in a Charlotte, North Carolina courtroom, the judge delivered the final blow. "Mr. Reyes, while what was done to you was cruel beyond words, you acted with calculation. You bought a weapon, you tracked your targets, you chose vengeance over justice. This court hereby sentences you to 35 years to life in prison for the murders of Lana Monroe Reyes and Tyson Cale Monroe." The courtroom fell silent. A single sob broke the air. It came from Maria Reyes, Elijah's mother, the woman who had raised him alone. Now she was watching the system take him away. But she couldn't fall apart, not yet, because beside her sat Zaria, confused and frightened, clutching her grandmother's hand, not understanding the full story, only that her father wasn't coming home. The final image the world saw of Elijah Reyes, behind the steel bars of a transport van. No tears, no anger, just quiet acceptance, because in seeking justice, he had repeated the cycle, and Zaria would now grow up like he did, without a father. final thoughts. Some betrayals wound, others destroy, but the question still stands. Was Elijah justified if the person you loved faked their death? If your best friend helped them vanish? If you raised a child alone because of a lie, would you forgive or seek revenge? Let us know in the comments. Was Elijah right, or did he go too far? Should Zaria know what her mother did or be shielded from the truth? Drop your thoughts below. And if this story gripped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell.